Class here on Srimad Bhagavatam today, and we'll get started after these brief prayers to the spiritual master. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Okay, welcome dear devotees to our second in the series of discussions on the transcendental literature, the fantastic work of Srila Vyasadeva, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, the Mahapurana. So we have been talking about the various topics that are discussed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And primarily, I had removed the waiting room, but Meera is still here. Okay, so hold on, let me get her in. So we were talking about the 10 topics which are there described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Atra Sarga Visargascha Sthanam Poshanam Utaya Manvantar Ishanukatha Nirodho Muktir Ashayaha. So it talks, all the way from creation, various types of creation, and nirodho, which is, destruction, and then getting liberated from this world, which is muktir. And then it also talks about that how the soul is going to take the shelter, ashraya, and how Lord Krishna is the ultimate ashraya and the ultimate shelter of all the living entities. So the Srimad Bhagavatam, as we know, was spoken to by Sukdev Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj, and also it was spoken by Suta Goswami once again to the sages in Naimisharanya, and it was also spoken by Lord Brahma, by Krishna to Lord Brahma at the beginning of the creation. So the Bhagavatam is spoken many, many times in many, many occasions. And also the size and the topic of the Srimad Bhagavatam, they vary from situation to situation, and which could mean that in the beginning, when people are more intelligent, which would be in the cycle of the 4 yugas that we have, so Satyuga, people are very intelligent, their minds are not very disturbed. And from there on, as we continue through the other yugas, these facilities and faculties, they start diminishing by a fraction of 1/10. And so the duration of the life decreases, the intelligence decreases, the fortune decreases. And that's why as we come to Kali Yuga, it is said that in Kali Yuga, we are manda sumanda matyo madha bhagya, right? So, and alpayusha. So we have a very short life. So in this short life, because we are unfortunate, we have to do a lot of hard work to make both the ends meet and to live. And so in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, and as we go through the Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll get to know more and more about the script Bhagavatam itself. And but we see that, and we know from hearing from the Acharyas even before we read the Bhagavatam, because Srila Prabhupada mentions and refers to the Srimad Bhagavatam in other places also, which is in the Bhagavad-Gita. There's a lot of references to Bhagavatam that he does, because Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad-Gita is Bhagavad-Gita as it is. And in the sense that he will not add any interpretations from his own mind about this is how I think it should be, this is how things are, but he will just, if he wants to emphasize a point, or if he wants to connect two concepts, he will just bring that concept from some other scripture. So at the end of the Bhagavad Gita and also in the Bhagavatam, you'll see the number of scriptures that he references, and that's quite a big, right? It runs into tens of, scriptures that he references there, and that he retains the authenticity of the literature, and which is very, very important. And so throughout the Bhagavatam, as we go, we will come to know layer by layer, it will peel as if it's a cabbage, and in the Srimad Bhagavatam itself will unfold itself to us. And so as the as the yugas progress and as time progresses, the Bhagavatam also has to increase in size. And the reason for that is that people are manda. We are not that intelligent in this group. And when we talk about intelligence, we're talking about the spiritual intelligence and not about material intelligence like that. So in order to explain the same concept, there has to be narrations and purports and tippanis and different acharyas come in explaining more to us about one single verse like that. And so that's why you see here in this yuga, again, the attention span is very less. And as you can see that earlier students used to sit in a class for 40 minutes. And I still remember when I was young, the classes, each of the classes used to be like, they were divided into periods, as they used to call it, and each period used to be 30 minutes long. And I remember the period was extended and made as 40 minutes, and all of us students started complaining, like, even 10 minutes there was difficult, but it was a 40-minute class. But now you see the attention span is so less that when people they go to watch even on a YouTube, the videos, etc., are 3 minutes long. Most of the videos are just 3 minutes long, because that's as much as the attention that we can, as much as time that we can focus on and give our attention there. But if we contrast that to the beginning, when we talk about of the Srimad Bhagavatam, when we talk about how Sukdev Goswami was listening to Srimad Bhagavatam from Sukdev Goswami. So Parikshit Maharaj sat there, for 7 days without food and without any sleep. And he just listens to the narration from Sukdev Goswami. So it doesn't happen in all the cases. It depends. It's something which depends on both sides of the conversation, the one who is talking about it and the one who is listening. So when you have a combination, like the speaker is Sukdev Goswami and the student is like Parikshit Maharaj, then Krishna Katha can go uninterrupted. And the reason for that is highlighted in the Chaturshloki Bhagavad-Gita, in the 4 shlokas of Bhagavad-Gita, which are in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, and where it says that mat chitta madgata prana bodhayantas parasparam kathayantas cha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. So they are describing about the devotees of the Lord. And so what the devotees of the Lord do is that mat chitta madgata prana. So their mind and their life is constantly engaged in topics of Krishna, and they take a special delight in discussing those topics. So because Parikshit Maharaj is a pure devotee and so is Sukdev Goswami, so that conversation is so very engaging. And not only he, but there were others in the audience also who had come from all over the world to listen to that. So we see that Srimad Bhagavatam actually opens not from here, not from Parikshit Maharaj listening to the Srimad Bhagavatam, but it comes after that, a couple of 100 years after that. We don't know the exact time, but after a couple of 100 years after that, when Krishna has gone back into his kingdom, and Parikshit Maharaj, Pandavas have also gone, given their kingdom to Parikshit Maharaj, and Parikshit Maharaj is ruling. And it is still Dwapar. It's still Dwapar. Kali Yuga has not come completely. So what happens between these yugas is there is an overlapping period between these yugas, right? So there is what we call as a sandhya, which is a junction of the time. So whenever 2 different types of times meet, that junction is called a sandhya. And that's why we have things like sandhya vandana, which basically means that when the times are meeting, because of the sudden change from one type of time to another type of time, then we should engage in that junction in prayers so that we can handle the other time that is coming up. And that is why there are prayers, and especially the Gayatri mantras that you recite whenever, the sun is rising, which is, the night is ending and the morning is coming. So the junction of night and morning, you do that. Then again, when night is turning into afternoon, when morning is turning into afternoon again, at noon, you do that, and you do that in the evening as well. Right? So you will find that that at that time, because of the sudden change, it's highly recommended that we keep Krishna in our mind at that time. And so similarly, when these yugas themselves, so yuga is nothing but a bigger span of time, right? So when these yugas also are, changing from one yuga to another yuga, the change is not as abrupt as we would see. I mean, even here, it's not that, suddenly afternoon is over and the sun and the night falls, right? So there's a little gradual thing which is there, but it's short-lived. But when it comes to yuga, this sandhya or this overlap of the yuga can last as long as 10,000 years. So what's going to happen is that in a current yuga, for example, in Dwapar, which we are talking about, where Krishna had come here and incarnated on this in this planet. So at that time, when Krishna leaves, we say that Kali Yuga starts, but actually Kali Yuga will start, a little before that. And then also, it won't be full-fledged and it won't be in full bloom. It will take about 10,000 years to do that, 10 to 15,000 years like that for that to happen. And so when this Sandhya is coming and people know, and how do people know about this? Because these yugas repeat themselves over and over again. So we know that in the previous yuga also this had happened. There was Dwapar and there was Krishna in some form had come, and then there was there was Kali Yuga that followed, and so on and so forth, right? So we will have these kinds of cyclical things that happen there between a particular creation of the Lord till the universe is annihilated. And so these sages, there were some sages who know they are, Trikaldarshi, they know the past, the present, and the future. So they know that in the future it's going to be very, very bad. Times are going to be bad. The mental state of people is going to be bad. The desires are going to be bad. And so they just said that, all these religious principles and these religious understandings and all that are just going to decline. And so he wanted that if people are not going to do the yagyas, and which we see that, manda sumanda mati or madda bhagya. So if your bhagya is less, if your fortune is less, then you won't even have the money to perform yagyas. And last Saturday, we talked about how Prithvi Maharaj was doing Ashwamedha yagyas, and we saw that, how much money is involved in doing that, right? Because there's a whole army that goes all over the world. There's fighting, there's animal, and then there are these yagyas. And the yagyas are not small, they're not just the small Havan kundas that you see. We might have 1 foot Havan kunda and we get 500 grams of ghee from somewhere and we just put it in and we are happy. And we throw in 6 bananas and like, all right, fine, we did a yagya. There, the yagya kund itself used to be 2 miles long, 3 miles long. So that's the kind of yagya that is happening, and thousands of people are sitting there and priests are sitting there and they're pouring ghee into it by the mounds, like 30 kilograms at a time, like that. And so they were doing that. So they decided to do all this kind of activities because they just thought that, if we do these activities, then it's going to create some vibrations. It's going to, and those vibrations will sustain and stay for some time because bad times are coming. So let's, bring up the level of the vibrations in the ambience by doing these yagyas. And so they do that, but for such a long time they did, and nothing good came out of it. They could not see any results coming from the yagyas, and that's when they turn and ask that, the head, that's what is it that we are doing wrong? And so these priests are headed by Shaunak Rishi, and they ask this question, what are we doing wrong, and what exactly is this? And so the questions start, and the Bhagavatam starts with 6 questions that the sages of Naimisharanya ask. And so Bhagavatam actually starts not from Shukdev Goswami talking, not from the birth of Krishna, but it actually starts with the 6 sages of Naimisharanya asking these questions. And that is how the Bhagavatam actually unfolds itself, that by just asking the right question. Just asking the right question. So the first chapter actually goes into just this, and it's, Shaunak Rishi talking about, the 6 questions they're asking, and the questions do get answered. And primarily their questions was, what is the purpose of creation? What are Krishna's pastime? And this is Kali Yuga coming us. What is for the good benefit of the mankind? So there are 6 questions that they ask, and the sage Suta Goswami, who's there to answer the question, sitting on the Vyasasana, he's very pleased with those questions. And the reason he's pleased with this question is, when it comes to a question that you ask, what would qualify to be a good question, right? So when you're sitting in an audience and you're asking a question, a good question is a question that will affect not only you, the answer to that will affect not only you, but something that will be beneficial for everybody who is there. And not only everybody who's there present in that assembly, but anybody else who would listen to it and hear the answer later on through some other media. And one media could be that you heard the answer and you repeated it. Another media could be printing books, or recording and things like that, right? So a good question is a question that will benefit anybody and everybody who listens to the answer to that question. So these are such fantastic questions that they have asked, because you can imagine that at that time when Krishna has gone, right? It's a big void. It's a big void. The hero has gone. And so people are worried. They just don't know what to do. Up until now, they were, at least the devotees were dependent on Krishna, and now that he's gone out of their eyesight. So they're worried about that. And so their question was that, now that he has gone back, what are we supposed to do? So those kind of questions they were asked, and he answers those questions to them. And before he sits down to elaborately answer the questions, one of the first things that he does, he congratulates the assembly, and especially Shaunaka Rishi, for asking such good question. And he says, Muniya sadhu prishtoham bhavadbhir loka mangalam. So he says that your questions are such that by answering your question, loka mangalam, it'll be good for everybody, who is there, right? And we know that classic example of a student in Srila Prabhupada's class who asked, Prabhupada, have you seen Indra? Right? So that kind of an answer to that kind of question is not going to benefit your devotional service at all, because Indra is a demigod, right? If somebody would have asked a question that, Prabhupada, have you seen Krishna? It would have been a different question, but he's asking Krishna, Prabhupada, have you seen Indra? And of course, Prabhupada, in his characteristic way, where he answers questions, Prabhupada had a very nice way of answering questions. Not necessarily he would answer all of them. And particularly in this case, he said, how does it benefit you whether I have seen Indra or not? And that's something to ponder. Yeah, how is it going to benefit you? If he says yes, how is it going to benefit you? If he says no, what are you going to lose? Right? And then, of course, one smart boy in the classroom who was also sitting in the classroom, he said, actually, it will be good if Indra sees Srila Prabhupada. So you see. So here's where the focus is, and here's what the right question to ask is. So these questions that these sages of Naimisharanya asked were fantastic questions. And then in answer to those questions, he gives a very high-level answer, but then as we continue down through Srimad Bhagavatam, he will say that, similar questions were also asked by Parikshit Maharaj. And so then he has to tell them a little bit about Parikshit Maharaj. And so we hear right in the beginning of Bhagavatam itself, and which was a very interesting thing, because most of us who come with, Indian cultural background have heard about the Bhagavad-Gita, right? Might have seen a Bhagavad-Gita in the home, not necessarily read it, or maybe read it, but not necessarily understood it, or maybe understood it, but not understood in deep, the deeper meaning of the Bhagavad-Gita. Might not have done that, but we think we know everything. And then, of course, we know the Mahabharata. So like, what's Mahabharata? Well, Pandavas were there and Kauravas were there. There was a fight there. But then there could be some more lucky people who have grandparents or parents who explain to them more nuances of Mahabharata. So they might start with, there was Shantanu, there was Ganges, and Bhishma was born, and from there, and then all that, right? But most of us just kind of stop at when the Pandavas leave their bodies and they go back, right? So we just hear like that. For example, and this is a very often asked question there, that when the Pandavas were leaving the body, they go to heavenly planets on the way back to God. And so a layman might just think, and this is where the Bhagavatam adds value. So a person might think, like when I read about Mahabharata, and I was following Mahabharata in Chanda Mama magazine that used to come every day. That was my source of truth. And so I read that, and it was not that it was untrue, it just that it didn't go into the depths and the details of explaining. So it just said, okay, they stopped in Swargloka, and I was like, oh, wow, very nice. And that's where it just stopped. So most of the times, the knowledge that we are given just stops somewhere in this material realm. And it is Srimad Bhagavatam that takes you beyond the material into the spiritual. right? It's in Srimad Bhagavatam that you will sit and you will understand the creation process. And that's why we say, Atta Sarga Visargasya. So it talks about creation. So it talks about material creation. So there must have been somebody creating all this material things. So what is that? Where is he? What type of a life is that? Right? So then you get to know about the spiritual planets as well, a little bit. And we see that, and that the creation process we read, well, whatever little of from Brahma Samhita that we read, those descriptions are there in Brahma Samhita as well. So things are distributed all over the different scriptures for us, depending on the mood and the personality and the time, the place, and the circumstance. Bits and pieces are going to be revealed to you as we go, right? And so there is, we have heard in the Bhagavad-Gita also, after, there is Arjuna. And so Arjuna, we most of us are like Arjuna in the second chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, where Arjuna is with his friend and cousin. They're very good pally folks, Krishna and Arjuna. And Arjuna is in a dilemma, doesn't know how to, how can he kill his own kith and kin? And he's confused. He's trying to give a lot of examples and justification from all various possible angles. And yet he is not satisfied with his own answers. And Krishna is not speaking anything in the first chapter. So ultimately, he just says that, okay, because he's a good man, he understands, he has been educated properly. So he says that, I take you as my guru. So he understands that whenever you are in some kind of a situation, you have to bring in the consultants. And that's what happens every time, right? If you go to a hospital and you're very sick and the doctors in the hospital are not able to diagnose or help, or they do something, but you're not getting the effect of that, then they bring in the consultants and the experts. It's a very common thing for experts to be brought in, right? And so the same thing happens in companies also. Companies not making as much money as they wanted to, sales are going down where they were expecting them to go up. So what do we do? How do we improve our processes? Our employees are leaving. So in all such circumstances, what do? They hire a consultant. So it's a very normal thing. So Arjuna in the second chapter is at that level that he, knows that this is a good thing to do. I'm cornered. I'm in a situation where I don't know what to do. So let's ask the consultant. Let's ask my big brother, Krishna. So his mood and his relationship with Krishna is like that, right? So you're my consultant. Let's see what you have to say. And I will still decide whether I'm going to take it or not take it, right? And so then Krishna tells him about Sankhya Yoga. He also talks to him about Buddhi Yoga, and he says it's better to do things for me. And then the third chapter, he starts up again and says, "Oh, vyamikshena vakyena," that you are talking about, concepts that are equivocal. Either this is also right and that is also right. I don't know what is right. So just tell me. And now we are going through chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, where we are learning more about Karma Yoga. So Krishna then explains and answers all the questions of Arjuna. There's heavy, deep philosophy in there till we come to the end of Bhagavad Gita. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, iti guhyatamam. So guhya means hidden. And guhya plus uttamam becomes guhyatamam. So it is the most of the secret, the topmost secret information I am telling you. And what does he tell as a topmost secret information? Sarv dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma sucha. So in 18.66, he's telling Arjuna to do that. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me, right? I will take care of you, do not doubt. That's what he tells him. And for us, to follow that is a very difficult thing, right? And that is what makes it guhyatamam. Guhyatamam doesn't mean that Bhagavad Gita is locked and kept in a trunk, buried 6 miles underneath the sea so that nobody can touch it. It's not that, it's out there. Bhagavad Gita is available on the internet. It's there on the internet for anybody and everybody to look at, right? But does everybody get it? Does everybody go to Bhagavad-Gita and read a Bhagavad-Gita every day? No, even for us, it becomes so difficult to read a chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita like that, right? So every day. So whether we get a knowledge or not depends on our entitlement. And of course, the sages of Naimisharanya are entitled to the fantastic information that is going to come out of the mouth of lotus mouth of Sutta Goswami. And Sutta Goswami, again, gives all the credit to his own spiritual master, Sukdev Goswami, and says that, okay, this is what has happened. This is how he has told the Bhagavatam. And so the same Bhagavatam, which was spoken in the beginning of the universe in 4 small shlokas in 2.9, 33, 34, 35, and 36 verses, that same Srimad Bhagavatam has to be explained with more examples and with more stories. Why? Because we are manda sumanda mateo. We are the ones with less intelligence. We need those narrations and explanations and augmentations, like that. But it is to our benefit that this got recorded, and Vyasdev, did that great service to all of us. That today we have that Granth in front of us, and we can go and read it. Now, it is easy for Krishna to say, Sarv Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Bhaja, but I need some inspiration. I need to know. I'm not able to do it. I turn to my friends and they say, hey, report, even I'm finding it difficult. So from where do I draw my inspiration? Are there people who really did Sarv Dharman Parityajya, who really surrendered to the Lord? Are there? And if they are, then tell me about them in a simple way, because I have a simple mind. And Srimad Bhagavatam does that to you. And Srimad Bhagavatam adds and tells you that, what? Things did not end after the Pandavas went back to Godhead via the heavenly planets. And, but even after that, their grandson, son of Abhimanyu, Parikshit Maharaj, was ruling the whole world. And how was he ruling it? How does he handle the advent of Kali Yuga, which is coming? So that is narrated in the first chapter or first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So they are setting the stage there in the first canto, talking about Parikshit Maharaj, like that over there. There also the prayers of Queen Kunti are there, which we had touched briefly some time ago, right? And also Bhishma Pitama's departure from this world is also very beautifully described, because that's when you come to hear about a very different aspect and a very different persona of Bhishma Deva. We would think that Bhishma Deva was I would say, a politician, so to speak, because he was there. He was a great grandsire of the Kauravas, and he was always, thinking about Hastinapur and Hastinapur's throne, right? And in the famous magnum opus Mahabharata in India, we always hear Mukesh talk about, Hastinapur ke sinhasan se mere haath bandhe mein hai, right? So my hands are tied to the throne of Hastinapur. I have to take care of this. It's my duty, right? So he's doing all that. And again, as all these stories narrate, they are telling you what to do and also what not to do, right? But then it's in Bhagavatam that you come, and it goes down deeply into the character of Bhishma Dev, and it will tell you his special relationship to Krishna and how Krishna goes there when Bhishma, of course, we know Arjuna had put the arrows into his body. And how many arrows had Arjuna put on Bhishma Deva's body? The same Arjuna who was crying and saying, how can I kill my grandfather? The same Arjuna had put as many arrows into his body, so many that he was lying on that bed, but all these arrows were one next to each other. There was no gap in between, like that. So there were so many arrows in Bhishma Pitama's body. And so we can imagine the pain that he's going through. And in that painful situation, he has this nice dialogue with Krishna, which is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam will, come and present what the devotees do and what difficulties they're willing to undertake in their lives in order to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? So here, Krishna has told Arjuna, and as we read the Bhagavad-Gita, we will know he's telling about the body. He tells him about the soul, right? In the 6th chapter, he also talk about the super soul, right? And Paramatma in the form of Paramatma or Sirodakshaya Vishnu. He'll tell about all that. And then he will also go and he will talk about himself, right? Manmanam of the Bhagavato, Madhyaji Mam Namaskar, right? So you become a devotee of mine. You do namaskars to me. So he kind of, abandons the humility and then really tries to tell him that, I am God. These are the things that you're supposed to do, right? So we hear about this. We hear about the Paramatma. And in the 2nd canto of Bhagavatam, we will also read about the Paramatma realization. And what exactly does it mean? What exactly does it mean to have access to this knowledge that there is a Lord in your heart? Actually, that's the name of one of the chapters in Bhagavatam, the Lord in your heart. So what does it mean? Do you want to share your thoughts on what does it mean if I say there's a Lord is in my heart? So what? If he's in my heart, what do you think? Is your behavior going to change in any way?
He'll be watching. He'll be watching us all the time. So we'll be very cautious to behave properly.
Okay, so he's watching us. We'll be very cautious to behave. Very good. Anybody else? What do you think? If you get that knowledge.
He is, Hare Krishna Mataji, he is residing in us in the form of Paramatma, and Atma is there. Their example is given in Srimad Bhagavatam of the 2 birds. So you see, Paramatma is watching us. After reading that, you become conscious that what we are doing is washed by Paramatma. And the fear factor also comes in the mind of a person that I should not be doing this. I should be doing the right thing in my life. So that way we correct ourselves in our life and our life becomes pious.
Okay, good. So thank you for expanding on Vindhyavali Mataji's point. What else?
He's there protecting us.
He's there?
He's there protecting us and guiding us.
He's there protecting you and guiding you, right? Upudrishta Anumanta. Upudrishta Anumanta. Right? So you see that the same knowledge, there's one piece of knowledge which says that there is a Lord in your heart. 2nd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam tells you that there's a Lord in the heart. By the time you reach the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, you still know that there's a Lord in your heart, but your relationship with that Lord has changed. Right? Hopefully. So when we say there's a Lord in my heart, I better be careful. That is showing one relationship, and we all have that relationship, which is a fear. Somebody is watching you. I better do the things right, otherwise he'll record it and I'll be punished. It's a good fear to have. And we should be aware of it, and it happens. So laws of material nature are very stringent. It's not that, you'll get away with it. And so that is one relationship. The other relationship was a slightly next step, which Garima pointed out, that, he's protecting me. So you see, there are two different ways in which we can look at the same Paramatma in our heart. One is that he is punishing me if I do anything wrong. And the second is that he's protecting me. And Krishna says in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, where he says, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishta matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedescha sarve aham eva vedyo vedantakrit vedavid eva chaham. So he says that I am residing in everybody's heart, and from me come remembrance and forgetfulness. And both the things are important for us at the same. Both are good. Sometimes forgetfulness is also good. So can you give me an example of when forgetfulness will be good?
We don't remember our past.
One at a time, please.
Hare Krishna Mataji, it's about previous birth or maybe something happened like very long ago, the pain or the agony, so that we can forget.
That you forget, okay. What else? There were many who were trying to say.
I was about to
Yes,
tell the same
Mataji.
thing, Mataji.
Same thing about the previous life.
Previous births.
Previous births, Chitra, previous births, Sukumal, Radhe Mataji, Varshana, you also were talking about previous birth.
Yes, previous birth. Suppose I was a king and today I'm not a king. So I feel bad. It is better to not remember that.
Okay. What about in this life itself? How does forgetfulness, how will forgetfulness play a good role?
In this life, Mataji, the persons we love so much, if they leave, for example, my husband, but we think that we can never forget. But sometimes, that shadow comes, we just get on our life. Of course, we do remember, but day-to-day life, keep on thinking and crying. That won't help. That's a little bit forgetfulness he gives. So I don't know whether I should say thank you or I should feel bad. That is the experience I had.
Yeah. What do you think? Is it Krishna's mercy? What would it be if somebody would cry forever for people who left them? How much will we be crying?
Yeah, there's a limit for that. And then surrounding people also will affect for that. So that thing little bit affects it. I should thank Krishna for that. But at the same time, I love so much, but I'm just doing my day-to-day life and getting along. That's some one way. It's not correct. One way it is Krishna's mercy.
Right. Well, people also say that women forget the pain of childbirth.
Yeah.
And that's why they have a second child. Right. What about forgetting the bad things that people did to you?
Yes, Mataji, that's why I told that pain. So we usually forget the reaction, how we reacted to that incident. So after a few years, it looks like that is like totally wastage of time and energy. We could have reacted in other way.
Yes, forgive and forget. Right. So Krishna gives that, Matta Smritir Jnanam Apohanam. Just is going to give you the knowledge, he's going to give you the remembrance, he's also going to give you the forgetfulness, right? And the remembrance, it comes in the form like, hey, you did it before, it was not good. Now you're about to do it again. So the remembrance will come at the same time, at exactly the same point, to kind of just, remind you that, okay, this is what it was in the last time. So that is one relationship with the Lord, right? So from fear to the Lord in the heart, we are talking about now a relationship where he's our benefactor, right? And then the relationship progresses further. And so from our relationship with Krishna, as he's the order supplier for me, he will give me if not anything, he'll give me remembrance. If not anything, he'll give me forgetfulness. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for $1 million, but can I forget that, insult that somebody hurled at me 15 years ago, which is still in my heart, like that, right? So we are still asking him. We are still asking him. And our relationship with our Lord is that we still think that we are better than the Lord. And we think that we are also more intelligent than him, or we don't even consider Krishna's intelligence at all in anything that we have. We have intelligence and we just use it. So if I'm in a bad situation in life, if I'm undergoing and going through something in life, then I might just go and pray to Krishna that, Krishna, you know what, this is happening to me in my life. Can you please do this? And then my problems will be solved. So what we did was, we were facing a mundane problem, and then we found, with our mundane mind, we found a mundane solution. And we are just thinking Krishna is an order supplier and he will give it to us. And you ask it and you get it. And and what happens as a consequence, you will hear about that in the story of Chitraketu, where a king thought that it's very important for him to have a child. And then he said, that's what I want. And Krishna gives it to him through some sages, like that. And then we have a third relationship also. And we'll talk about that before we take this question from Meera Mataji. Meera Mataji, were you raising your hand? Or was it
Yes, I was. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
When I was reading, I'm still reading slow, the Bhagavatam. So when I was reading the chapter 10 of the first canto, which says departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka, for me, it was like watching a very captivating movie. I couldn't put it down. I read chapters after chapters. To me, it was better than any movie I was watching. So it gave me the depth, the clue, not from what I knew, how we forget who really Krishna was, how everybody's feelings were when he was leaving for Dwarka from Hastinapur. That chapter was like, it really touched my heart, and it made me understand, wow, who is Krishna? I don't even know him. And it really, really touched my heart. And I still don't understand, of course, but this was like watching one of the most captivating movie, and it really touched my heart.
Thank you. Thank you for endorsing Srimad Bhagavatam on this occasion of Bhadra Purnima. And for those of you who will be watching this on Facebook later, when we place the recording there, as well as on YouTube, I hope we went through YouTube. But anyway, yeah, so she very rightly said. And it is so captivating. And why is it so engrossing? Because it is about Krishna. And you're not going to get any happiness other than engaging yourself in anything which is transcendental. And the reason is that that is what you are. That is what your real identity is. So I can come from India and I can don a suit and be dressed like, and cut my hair and be dressed like a Western style lady. But in my heart of heart, I'll still be hungering for my idli and my sambar, because that's who I am. So the same thing happens to the soul also. Where's my chana bhatura? Simi Mataji will say, that's what it is. I don't like your sandwiches. I don't like your finger food, like that. So it boils down. It can be extrapolated to what is happening to us here in this life also. So then we come to the third type of relationship with the Lord in the heart. And that is when you love the Lord who is in your heart. Right? And when it comes to Lord in the heart, there are two narrations that you will find in Srimad Bhagavatam. And one is about Narad Muni. And so Narad Muni, and there are many stories about Narad Muni. He's there almost in every canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He's talking to various people, instigating, inciting, exciting people to make decisions. And sometimes he's also cursing. But the idea is ultimately to bring those people to Krishna consciousness and help them go back to Godhead. That's what Narad Muni does. And so Narad Muni, when he was a small child, his mother died, and he was devastated. And as Vindhyavali Mataji said that, husband dying, and I loved him so much. And so you can imagine how much more we love our mothers, we love them more than we love our husbands. And so it's very natural, because they love their mothers more than they love you. So that's fine. It's always that. Ladies always complain about that. So anyway, jokes apart. So he was devastated. And so he was already, becoming a devotee, because he was serving some sages, and we'll talk about that in some future sessions. But he was already a devotee. He was praying to the Lord, and then suddenly the Lord comes and, arranges for his mother to die. And he's like, Lord, you have taken away the one that I love, which is my mom, right? Now you are the one. So sometimes in our lives, things get taken away. Material things, material relationships on which we were dependent, and relationships that we were thinking that they are our own real relationship, and that these are the things that we should really be focusing on in our lives. That's what we think. And so sometimes there'll be a ruffle and a shuffle in our lives, and the carpet will get pulled away from underneath our feet, and we'll be devastated and we will not know what to do. And we might just even think that, why is it happening? Why is it happening to me? So those jolts that come into our lives are to open our eyes. Because there's a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam in the second canto where it'll say that Deha Patra Kala Deshu Atma Senyashva Asatswa Api Tesham Parmattu Nidhanam Pascham Api Na Pasyati. So it says that very, very important. It is saying that people who are devoid of Atma Tattva, people who do not have knowledge of the soul, and Bhagavatam is repeatedly going to emphasize that point to us. So those who do not have knowledge of the soul, those people will surround themselves with an army who is going to defend them. And what is that army made up of? That army is made up of their wife or their husband or their children, sons, their money, their bank balance, the political situation, so on and so forth. But this verse from Bhagavatam is actually saying that they have surrounded themselves with soldiers to defend themselves, but these are fallible soldiers. These are soldiers that will fall down. So a person might just think, going by the story of, Satyakam. So his wife, when Satyakam died, his wife was able to, through her prayer and the power of her prayer, bring her husband back to life. So husband might think that, okay, my wife is a pious one. She'll arrange and she'll make sure that I don't die. What if your wife dies before you do? Right? So these are fallible soldiers. So don't surround yourself with such fallible soldiers. And if you are doing that, like Narad Muni was surrounding himself with his mom, then Krishna might sometime arrange it. And although superficially it might look like, oh, what a heartless God that we have, we realize soon after, 2 chapters that what a wonderful benediction it was for Narad Muni to have all knots that tie you to this material world, to have all those knots cut off so that he was able to focus completely on the Lord. And did the Lord take care of him? Yes. And that is one of the topics that we say, Ashraya, which I mentioned, that's one of the topics also covered in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Lord in the heart, when Narad Muni, after his mom has died, then the Lord Muni is sitting and he is meditating on the Lord. And the Lord appears in his heart. He appears in his heart and he's overjoyed and he opens his eyes. And to see, is he here or is he somewhere outside? So he opens his eyes and then the Lord is gone. And then what he starts to do is he closes his eyes. He's a small child, closes his eyes tightly, starts looking inside into his heart. Like, come back. So again, he's at that level where he's thinking that the Lord will come when I want him to come. I am still the controller. I am still the Lord and the master. It is my desire to see the Lord. So Lord better appear. He's my order fulfiller. So you see that these little traces which are there, which are called as lesha matra, like a very tiny filament are there. So even in advanced devotees, you will find that there's a lesha of, like in the case Narad Muni in that life, little ego is there, that I am something like that. And that all that has to completely dissolve, all that has to completely go away. And that ego will go away only when you love somebody. Because they have said, right, a man will do foolish things for the woman he loves. And what is a foolish thing? When he does not think about his position, right? He's completely besotted by the person in front of him and will act and do stupid things, right? That's the material side of it. But when you start loving the Lord, the kind of actions that he'll do will be very, very different. And that story comes, and we have all heard about that story about Shivji, right? So there is a very nice mention of Shivji, and he's mentioned many times in Shiva Gita also. And Shiva is a devotee of the Lord, right? And he's sitting down, he closes his eyes, and he's concentrating on the Lord. And there are many, many instances where Shivji is quoted again in the Srimad Bhagavatam for our own education. And we all know the famous story of Shivji as to why he is called Neelkantha, right? He's got this blue thing on his throat. Kantha is throat, and that is very blue in color, right? And we know that this is going back to the time when the ocean was being churned, right? So the Samudra Manthan is happening. And we had talked about that a few months ago, that which ocean is being churned? Can you tell me which ocean was being churned? Indian Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, or Pacific Ocean? Which ocean in the Samudra Manthan? Where is that pastime happening? Where do you think that is happening? So if you are now thinking about it, that points out that, we don't even know how to ask this question. Even I didn't ask that question. Some of the Manthan, I thought Indian Ocean is a story from India, right? And so I used to imagine that that's where it is happening. But then if you pay attention to what is written in the scripture, it says, Shir Sagar ka Manthan. Where is Shir Sagar? Shir means? What does Shir mean?
Milk.
Milk. The ocean of milk, right? So now you know about Shiro Dakshay Vishnu?
Yes.
That ocean, right? And where is that ocean? It's on the Dhruv planet in our universe, right? So that is where that pastime is occurring. So you get to know of these nuances, right? Of things we kind of take granted and never ask any questions. So we're happy. We are very fortunate that Parikshit is asking that question. Sukhdev Goswami is asking this question. Sutta Goswami is asking this question. So many people are there asking that question. Many, many different types of questions, and we just benefit from the answers. So the questions should be such that they benefit the not only the answer, the question asker and answer, but everybody in between. And in between could also be over a period of time. So now here we are, reaping from the benefits of that conversation or for that question that was asked there. And so going back to Shivji, so we know from the Samudra Manthan, like as it happens in every project. So Samudra Manthan project itself in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I'll love to talk about that later in some session, is an amazing example of how projects in our lives can go, which direction that they can go, right? So first is trying to find the resources for a project. I want to build a house, need to get the Lakshmi. You get the Lakshmi, now I have to get a good contractor who doesn't run away in the middle of the things like that, right? So, I need to do Samudra Manthan. Who wants to do Samudra Manthan for the first time? The Devtas and the Asuras are doing something together. Because why? They have the same goal. Both of them want the nectar so that they don't die. So when the goal is common, then even enemies will come together. That's something to learn from that Samudra Manthan story, right? And then, of course, problems, infrastructure problems, right? They have to bring a Mantrachal mountain, and they need Vasuki to tie, and then he keeps on slipping down. Then Lord has to come as Kurma Avatar, put the mantra mountain on his back and let them do. So you need resources, you need consultants, you need help from other people. And then guess what? After doing all this, poison comes out. So that's what happens, right? He works so hard, like I'm working, and then you get fired, which I have not yet been, but you never know, right? So, so don't be baffled if things like that happen in your life, because it's happening to the demigods who are much, much more powerful than we are. So there's someone, the Manthan, this wish comes out, and it is such a strong poison and there's heat and smell coming out of it that people can't bear it. And so there's Vishnu there in the form of Kurma Avatar. He's right there. And so he could have helped them, right? What is there? What is a little, ocean of poison for Krishna to handle? He handles all the universes, but he doesn't handle it, right? Shivji handles it, who is his devotee. So not only does the Lord protect you, but the Lord will sometimes also give you certain projects to accomplish so that your name is glorified. So not only does he give you protection and ashray, he gives you super protection in the sense that, not only protecting, he's ensuring that you get glorified like that. So Shivji then, holds the wish here. Now, Shiva is a very powerful demigod. Of all the demigods, he's powerful, most powerful in the material sense of it, or semi-material sense of it. So we hear in Srimad Bhagavatam that when there was Prahlad Maharaj, Bhakt Prahlad was there, and his father threw him into a pit of snakes. And he just kept on praying and nothing happened to him. Now, if you look at it materially, there's a very simple answer, material plus mystic. And that is that when you advance in devotional service, then certain elements of this material world stop to have an effect on you, right? And that is why you see that people are able to stand in the snow up in the Himalayas and practice meditation. How are they going to do that? Whereas others, they are well equipped, the mountaineers, they're well equipped, and one small thing, the finger shows and they have a frostbite. The finger drops off, cut off and drops off. So why does that happen? So as you advance in devotional service, you will continue to get these kinds of powers to be able to, go above the vagaries of nature. So Shivaji is even, is very powerful. And so for him, he could have gulped down all that poison. He could have gulped it all down. And then it would have passed away in stools the next day, right? But he didn't do that. He didn't do that. And the question is that why would he do that? Why would somebody hold the poison here forever in his throat? And the acharyas tell us this nice story. And they tell us that, Shivji is a devotee. And he's thinking that the Lord is in my heart. And if I gulp all this poison down my throat, it's going to scorch my Lord who is in my heart. So you see, it's the third way of looking at the Lord in your heart. One is that he's observing me. Second, he'll do something for me. Matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. And the third is that I love my Lord. How can it, and you see so much more instances of this love for Krishna, love for the Lord being exhibited by Mother Yashoda, by the Gopas, by Radharani, by the Gopis, and so on and so forth. And when you hear these narrations from Srimad Bhagavatam, we are supposed to take inspiration from them as to say that I love somebody, I love you, God, I love you, Krishna. That has to be demonstrated in our actions. Look at Shivji's actions. Look at Shivji's thoughtfulness. Look at how he was thinking about Krishna all the time. I mean, here, man, there's a complete chaos. There is this wish and this poison that has come out, and people are dying from that, and the leaves are shriveling up, and trees are falling down, and it's complete chaos in this universe. And in all of that, people have come to him to drink it. And he's saying, oh, but the Lord in my heart is going to suffer. So he's not thinking of the Lord as a controller. He's not thinking of the Lord as an order provider. He's thinking the Lord as an object of his love. And so that is why Shivji is there holding the thing in his throat. So the Srimad Bhagavatam proposes to do that through the 9 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam that you read, you will be convinced that Krishna is the Lord. And once you are convinced, then we ask you to read the 10th canto of Bhagavatam and then proceed on to the further stages. And ultimately, prema, Krishna prema is the ultimate goal of everybody, like that, right? And you just have to show a little bit of an inclination towards Krishna. And he can handle a lot of girlfriends, doesn't matter. If you have one more over there, do that, okay? So I will stop now over here and take a couple of reflections for a few minutes before I move on. And so
Krishna.
Okay, Sadhana Mataji, you can go because it's your first question of the day.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was going to say today's talk in the morning with the Vaisheshika Maharaj, he was saying that we are all actually wives of Krishna.
Yes.
So, so going back to the thought about developing love for Krishna and having a relationship, can you just, I'm trying to fit together that statement with what you were saying as well, and how, so do we already have a relationship, or is it to be formed, or like where?
Yeah, a relationship is already formed. Why? Because we are coming from up there. We were already having a relationship with Krishna. We decided to break off and then come here as a result of that. So when you pursue the relationship, or when you pursue devotional service to the Lord, and when we finally go back to Godhead, so right now, as this soul is covered by this gross body that you see, similarly, when the soul is in the spiritual world, it is covered by a spiritual body, right? And what kind of a spiritual body are you going to have? Are you a stone, or are you a human being form, or are you in the form of a cow, or whatever form that you are in, right? That is predetermined. That is already defined. We were cast in a particular, role and a shape like that. We've just forgotten that spiritual shape. Now we are taking this material shape, and we take different kinds of material shapes here as well, from one lifetime to the other lifetime. So that original shape and form that we have is known as our Swarup, your own roop, your own form, right? So that's why in the devotional service, and as you progress in the devotional service, you get siddhis or perfections. Like the Ashtanga Yoga will give you Ashtasiddhi, right? Mahima, Lagima, Anima, heavier than the heaviest, lighter than the lightest, bigger than the biggest, Vanchita, can control people's mind and all that. So that's Siddhi. But the ultimate Siddhi, or the ultimate perfection that we get in our devotional service is Swarup Siddhi. And that is when you understand and realize what is your own spiritual identity, like that, right? And so when the term wife is being used here, right, as the souls are all wives of Krishna, Prabhupada explains that a wife is meant for enjoyment from the Shastric perspective, meant for enjoyment. She will love the husband, she will cook nicely for the husband, she'll smile sweetly, she will get dressed nicely to please him, and so on and so forth, right? So trying to give that analogy of how you see a wife and a husband here in this material world, we are saying that all the souls should have a similar relationship with Krishna. And that is, we should please Krishna, we should dress to please Krishna and not to please ourselves, like that. And to understand that we are not the enjoyer, we are the enjoyed. And so we have to do things that will please Krishna. That is the mood that all of us should have, whether we are in a female body here or whether we are in a male body there. Our relationship with Krishna is that of a wife who serves and pleases the Lord. So when we use the term wife, that's the term, that's the way in which it is used. Because somebody might just think like, what if I'm a cow? I'm his wife, like that. No, but cow will also want to please Krishna there. Okay. So now going back, you're welcome. Now going back to the order in which the hands were raised, Sutapa, and then Vindhyavali, and then Sukumala. Okay, Sutapa.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Mataji. So Mataji, you just mentioned that when you advanced in devotional service, so some of the material elements won't affect. So Mataji, can you give me a small example in the basic level? I'm not talking about very higher level, but in a basic level.
Yeah. So the basic level, they don't feel cold. Right? Like I said, they can go to the Himalayas and they will meditate. They are advanced. So the cold will stop having an effect on their body. That's one example. The second example which I gave was that poison will not have an effect of them. Snakes can come and bite them. It doesn't have an effect on them at all. So these are two siddhis. Other siddhis also are like, they can become small in size. Like Hanuman became small in size to go and meet Sita. Right? Mother Sita, when he went to Ashok Vatika, he became small. And the same Hanuman also became big. When his tail was set on fire, then he became very big. And that's how he was able to demolish the entire city, put the entire city of Lanka on fire. Right? Again, with his big body, he was able to make his body big and jump across the ocean, Indian Ocean, and land in Lanka. Like that, right? So these are some of the perfections that you get in some of the mystic perfections that you get. But a devotee doesn't stop there. A devotee doesn't stop his life and say, okay, now I've got this thing, I can become heavier than a heavier. So let me have a TV show of my own or a circus show of my own and make some money out of that. He doesn't stop there. His focus is on trying to find the Lord. Like that. Yeah.
Mataji, I am. So that means I don't know about others, but it's very difficult to reach at that level. Means basic level also is very high.
Basic level,
At that point,
what is the meaning of basic level from you? What is basic level?
In our level, that's what she's talking about. I think so. Like not like
to reach a basic level where you don't feel cold and you don't snakes
yes,
can bite you.
Yeah.
You don't have to strive for that level. These will come as a concurrent thing. They'll come as a byproduct of your devotional service. A devotee never goes for that. And that's what Bhagavatam teaches you. A devotee never goes for that. The Vedas will teach you things like that. Vedas will teach you how to do this so that snakes don't bite me, or I can conquer snakes and I can jump over mountains. The Vedas will tell you that. But the striking difference between Bhagavatam and the Vedas is that Bhagavatam will not tell you any of the recipes on how to become lighter than the lightest. It'll just say that when you are meditating in the Lord in the heart, you will get these as a byproduct. And it also warns you that don't stop your vehicle there just because you found a beautiful flower by the roadside. Continue on your journey, because that's not your goal. The flower is not your goal. Your goal is something else. So don't be disappointed if you can't fly, Sudhava Mataji. Right? People still go back to Godhead. We don't have to fly back to Godhead. When we die, if we are going to go back to Godhead, then the Vishnu Dutas will come and take us back in an aeroplane. So we don't even have to buy the ticket. We just have to work hard for the ticket. Like that.
Thank you, Mataji.
Vindhyavali Mataji.
At first, let me thank you for giving a nice class. Lot of information today we got. And the second one is, I need to know which canto, which chapter that Bhishma Pitamaha prayed, asked Krishna, those prayers. Which one?
First canto, 9th chapter, I think, correct? Yeah, it's around 8, 9, 10, 11, one of those three. I think 9. Yeah.
Okay.
So Komal,
the other one is also, that like you said, devotional service or forgetting. Like, I experience Sundays, I go there whole day. I'll be there every Sunday. I'm going. Certain things, if I sit alone, it bothers me, my granddaughter, and I hope she's doing and what is happening. And a lot of things, remembering some other past, my life and everything. But if I go to the temple, I don't know what happens to me till evening. I'm just tired. And then I do whatever I'm supposed to do there. That's it. And I forget everything. That makes me, that is the reason I want to go. And a lot of people, they say, no, at your age, if I am your age, I cannot do all this all day. I said, I don't know whether how I'm getting Krishna's mercy. But at the same time, I'm just forgetting about other side of the world for me. I'm just coming here and doing the service and I'm going. So that makes a lot of difference, Mataji, devotional service. And if we do wholeheartedly, it just you forget everything.
Yeah, thank you. So Komal,
that's my experiences.
Thank you. So Komal,
yeah, along the same lines on 15.15 about remembrance and forgetfulness.
Yeah,
I feel that, when you said forgive and forget, it is never easy to forget. It is easier to forgive, but it's never been easy to forget. But after having started reading and attending classes and getting more into devotional service, I feel you reach a little slightly higher level than what you were at before all this. So then you feel, yeah, it's easier to forget, even though it's not sometimes, but it is easier than before. So I think it really helps to be constantly in touch with the Bhagavad-Gita and Bhagavatam, because those are the only two that will really make us somewhat elevated. I mean, very minutely, but yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that and elaborate. I'll just like to add a few more things to the forgive and the forget thing. And they say that, you cannot forgive, you cannot forget unless you have forgiven, if you haven't forgiven it. And so if we have, and it's a very interesting journey from being hurt and angry at what somebody did to us, to taking the shelter of Krishna consciousness and beginning to forgive. And obviously, if we are still remembering it, this means we have not completely forgiven them, right? So from anger, etc., we come to a stage, to devotional service, to chanting the holy names of the Lord, we'll come to a stage where we have forgiven them. And that stage will be like, oh, I know that person is such a loser and so rude and, doesn't know how to talk and, wrote this, whatever, no to me or whatever. And to that, now we are at a stage where, okay, so you are the bad one and I'm the good one. And I forgive you, right? From there, you will see the gradual progress. That as you go higher in your devotional service, now you will develop compassion for the person who was rude, compassion for the person who behaves in such a way. And that is why Prahlad Maharaj, when he was offered the benedictions of material opulences, and can I come, he just said, I will just stay here with these fools and rascals, as Prabhupada translates that. Why? Because of the compassion that he has. And classic example of that is Jesus Christ, right? Who said that they do not forgive them, O Lord, they do not know what they are doing. So to come to that kind of a consciousness where we can say they don't know what they're doing is the amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. And it comes with devotional service. From there, to go to the extent that you love them enough that you will sit on a boat and come to America at the age of 69 and tolerate all the indecencies that the local people did and still give them Krishna consciousness, as Prabhupada did, So as we go deeper into these scriptures and read from the lives of others and understand the facts of life and how all this subtle body operates on the gross body and so on and so forth, your admiration for Srila Prabhupada will grow. There's no other way, there's no other way. It's just bound to happen. So in the beginning, it's like, okay, fine, 2 heart attacks, right? But underneath that, when you see how much he loved, and you see that love is you witness that love when you eat the feast on Srila Prabhupada's birthday. His disciples cook. His disciples are willing to not attend the midnight prayers for Sri Krishna, right? They don't attend that. Why? Because they are busy cooking and they have to come back again early in the morning and cook again, right? So that is the kind of dedication, see, what they have for their spiritual master. And it shows in the cooking. Why is it so fantastic? Why? Why is it like that on that day? It's all the love that goes into it. Yeah, so that's Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Shraddha.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for asking that question. Alrighty, so I'll take a leave again. For those of you who get up early in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, we are going to start chapter 15. And now what we'll do is we'll use a slightly different way of addressing chapter 15. Up until now, we have been breaking down verses into pieces and things like that, all of us practicing. But tomorrow, we'll have an aim of memorizing that verse, right? So rapt attention, stay there with rapt attention, listen to every word, every syllable. And I assure you, you will get it. It will come. Just have the desire in your heart that I want to memorize Krishna's words. Bhagavad-Gita is Krishna's words, and so is Bhagavatam. Okay?
Yeah.
So I'll take
Thank you so much, Mataji, for a
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Vancha kalpatarupyasya kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Gaur Premanandi.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Have a nice day.
Krishna.